Father Barnabas Powell is pastor of Saints Raphael, Nicholas, and Irene, Greek Orthodox Church of Cumming, Georgia, USA. Here's Father Barnabas with Sunday's homily.
I know you think that all of my ideas from my sermons are just rolling around in my head all the time, and that but what you don't realize is I just steal from other preachers. All kidding aside, it is foolish to believe that you can ever do this work of proclaiming the gospel by yourself and only for yourself. This faith is meant to be shared. It's meant to be experienced in community. It's meant to be experienced as the body of Christ, not the liver or the eyeball or the nostril. You're a family. We're a family. And we're a family that extends not only all over the world, but even back into time, all the way back to the day of Pentecost. And it's one family that can't be divided by death. It can't be divided by time or space or distance. It can't be divided by culture or language. It can't be divided by anything because Christ is not divided. Christ is not divided. Christ is one. Therefore, there is one church. Oh, Father, are you trying to say that all these other churches aren't churches? Guys, I'm in sales, not management. That's not my call. I don't get that memo. But I can tell you this. Jesus Christ is not divided, nor is He denominated. Jesus Christ is one. Καταλάβετε. Those of you who speak Greek, you understood that. Those of you who don't, start taking lessons. No, I'm just... Καταλάβετε, do y'all understand? I'll translate it into the Southern English phrase. Do y'all understand? And so in light of that, something that a fellow priest friend of mine was talking about on one of our little online groups that we go to and share ideas and talk, and he said something to me that struck me like a ton of bricks. Especially about this gospel lesson this morning, and especially at this time of year, and especially in the chaotic moment that we live in our society, in a society that seems to be excelling in self-centeredness. Excelling in, well, I just want to live out my truth. Your truth. Fascinating. Your truth? All by yourself? What color is the sky in your world? I know, I laugh too. So we were talking about this, and he used a phrase that it just knocked me over. And I had heard it before, but it was just kind of like that. Haven't you ever had a moment where something really hits you really strong, and it turns on all the lights in your head, and you go, wow! An aha moment is what they call it. Well, I had one. This brother was sharing this with me, and he said this phrase. He said, our gospel lesson today reveals the dangers of watch this, the myth of scarcity. The myth of scarcity. This man in our gospel lesson today is a very rich man. And if you know anything about the Old Testament, if you know anything about the New Testament, if you know anything about the Jewish prophets in the Old Testament, if you know anything about the consistent message of the Christian faith for centuries, if you've read anything from St. Basil, and in fact I'm going to quote St. Basil about a couple of times on these things. If you read anything about St. Basil, understand, ladies and gentlemen, God isn't going to give you a multiple question test at the end of your life to determine whether you're a sheep or a goat. God is going to ask you one question: how did you treat the poor? Period, full stop, end of discussion. How did you treat the poor? Now, we're going to define poverty in just a bit, and I think it's going to maybe open up a few things for you. How did you treat the poor? Why is that the question that Jesus Christ asks to determine who is a sheep or a goat at the end of time? Because, ladies and gentlemen, your ability to be tender, your ability to be merciful, your ability to be compassionate exposes the kind of human you are. When this man, this very wealthy man, this very successful man, and make no mistake about it, ladies and gentlemen, you live in a country that is unrivaled in its riches, throughout history. Solomon, in all of his glory, could not hold a candle to an average middle-income person in the United States of America. We are filthy rich. Why do you think our biggest problem in this country is obesity? And on top of that, our biggest medication is an antidepressant. If money's going to make you happy, honey, we fail. We should be the people should be skipping around the streets in this country every day, giggling innocently and silly in a silly manner. All the time. Look. If what you have is going to make you happy, honey, you ain't got no reason to be sad. Because we live in an age of plenty unparalleled in human history. We're living longer than we ever have before. Our medical society, even though we're in a pandemic now, science has gotten so sophisticated that they have got a vaccine for a virus. And folks, let me tell you something. Vaccines for viruses, they don't come along. Goodness, have you ever heard of the flu shot? It's hit and miss every year. They've got 2 vaccines vying to put this pandemic behind us, thanks be to God, sooner the better. We live in a wealthy age, and so the myth of scarcity, the myth of me being unhappy because of what I don't have, creates a spiritual sickness in us that threatens our ability to be men and women who can authentically claim to be followers of Jesus Christ. It is a dangerous thing for your soul to fall into the pit of the myth of scarcity. This rich man was successful. He had abilities. He was the wealthiest man around, and his crops came in big time. And he asked himself this question: what am I going to do? I got more stuff than I need. I know what I'll do. I'll tear down my barns and I'll build bigger barns and store all of my good grains and all of my good stuff. I'll store all of my goods in these bigger barns, and I'll say to my soul, soul, take your ease. Eat, drink, and be merry. And then God speaks to this man who has been gripped by this myth of scarcity. Why do you think he wanted to keep all that stuff? Because he was scared, folks. He said, oh, well, I'm going to eat, drink, and be merry. But let me tell you something. One of the consequences of buying into this myth of scarcity is fear and a lack of faith. You don't believe God's going to take care of you, so you grip your life just like this. Hold on to everything you possibly can, because who knows, I may need it. You know, there's a TV show on one of these channels. There's only about, 350 channels nowadays? I remember when there was 3. I remember when TBS, the Superstation, Channel 17, came on in Atlanta. We thought, there's 4 channels? 4? How are we going to watch all this TV? But this guy, whenever you grip your life like this, it reminds me of one of the shows on one of these reality shows called Hoarders. Have you ever? I've known people like that. I've been like that. Well, I know this is an old pair of pants, but I'm going to keep it because I may need it. I've got a box in my office right now. It's empty. Do you know why it's still in my office? It's a good box. It's a good box. I may need that box. In the middle of the floor. That's not where boxes go. But look, the myth, the fantasy of scarcity says, I've got to hold on to this. I better hold on to it, because if I don't hold on to it, I may need it later. And you have people who are gripped by fear and their lack of faith, and they reveal their heart to the whole world because they hold their lives just like this. I love what Corrie ten Boom said. You know why? She said, you know why I stopped holding my life just like this so tight? She said, because it hurts when God does this. When He starts making my life in a situation. Because if you notice, people who are gripped by this myth of scarcity are always unhappy, and they're always wondering, well, if I just had this, then I'd be happy. If I just had that, then I'd be happy. And because they're stupidly thinking that their goal is to be happy. Folks, something that can be affected and taken away from you as easily as somebody cutting you off in traffic is not something you need to give your life to. Your happiness can go away by somebody cutting you off in traffic. Don't waste your life trying to be happy. What are you, goofy? How old are you, 4? Here's a piece of candy. Go sit in the corner. Grow up. Quit pretending you can have this faith without a cost. Stop thinking you can live your life constantly upset about what you don't have. The myth of scarcity, folks, drives men and women away from God and towards a small and self-centered life. This time of year, we are in the gift-giving season. We're ready to start doing that, and this coming week we'll have Thanksgiving. And we understand the power of gratitude to break the back of this myth of scarcity. And isn't it interesting, even in the midst of the pandemic, you can go and have a whole Thanksgiving dinner delivered to your door. Amazing. This whole Thanksgiving delivered to your door. In the midst of this multiplication of plenty, what does all of these riches reveal about who you are? Now be careful, because I said early on that how we treat the poor reveals who we really are. But there's more than one kind of poverty. This rich man in our story today who said, I'll tear down my barns and build bigger barns. And God says, you fool, tonight your soul will be required of you. You're going to give an account for all the blessings that I've given you tonight. And then who's all these riches going to be? You built all these bigger barns and stored all this stuff up, and guess what? All your heirs are going to fight over it. You're not carrying it with you at all. The power of this myth of scarcity creates men and women who cannot be free to be truly grateful. And gratitude is what Thanksgiving is all about. This gift-giving season. This year, by the way, did you know that nonprofits during this time of year will get their biggest gifts? But the sad reality is, folks, is we think that when we say poverty, we just mean money. When we say poverty, we just mean a nice house. They don't have a nice house, or they don't have a fine car. Brothers and sisters, there's a deeper poverty, a more insidious, cancerous poverty. A poverty of the soul that makes a man, no matter how much money he has, a pauper in the eyes of God. You fool, tonight your soul will be required of you. You never know what moment that is, my angels, and you better be rich enough spiritually, rich towards God, Jesus says, so that you will be prepared for that moment when you will give an account for all the blessings that you gave. St. Basil said that the way this man made this mistake, I'm paraphrasing, the mistake this man made was when he asked the question, what shall I do? I don't have room in my barns to hold all of my grain. I know what I'll do. I'll tear down my barns and build bigger barns. And St. Basil said that's where he made his mistake. The extra grain belongs to the poor. The extra coat you have in your closet belongs to the poor. That extra pair of shoes you have belongs to the poor. That pile of clothes that you've been saying, I'm going to go through them, I promise I'm going to go through them. They belong to the poor. When you have a heart that is freed from the myth of scarcity, you are set free to be generous with everything you have. You don't hold your life like that anymore. You hold your life loosely. And God provides for you. God provides for you over and over and over again. And everything extra He's given you, He has given you to see if you have the integrity and the freedom and the humility to give it away. As we approach our Sunday of our stewardship focus for next year, That's exactly the way I want you to treat your money. I want you to stop treating your money like you're about to run out. About to go under. Only got $150,000 in an IRA and only a $250,000 in the bank. It's getting tight. You see, ladies and gentlemen, the myth of scarcity turns you into someone who has turned in on himself. I want to encourage you this morning, as you think about what you own, as you think about the blessings that God has lavished on you, where is the extra? Can you dare trust that God will take care of you no matter how generous you are? Are you that kind of Christian? Are you that kind of follower of Jesus Christ? Has your life been so changed and so transformed by the lavishness of God, God's generosity, that has turned you into a generous person? Are you rich toward God this morning? Or are you afraid that you're not going to get what you think is going to make you happy? The good news of Jesus Christ to you this morning is this: if you don't want to be afraid, you don't have to. But it'll cost you. You'll have to become generous and free. Amen.
You can follow Father Barnabas on YouTube or on our church website at stsrni.org. Thank you for watching.